पन्नः पारिजाताय स्तोत्रवेत्रैकपाणये ज्ञानमुद्राय कृष्णाय गीतामृतदुहे नमः। Hare Krishna. Happy to be with all of you. We are discussing Bhagavad Gita, the first unit of it. We recently covered the 5th chapter of Bhagavad Gita. Today we will embark on the 6th chapter. In study of Shastras, which is one of the limbs of Bhakti, it is told that one should study Bhagavatam with faith. Sadhu Sangha Nama Kirtan Bhagavat Shravan Mathuravas Shri Murtira Shraddhaya Sevan. This is the statement from Chaitanya Charitamrita, which says there are 5 most important or powerful limbs of Bhakti. First one is Sadhu Sangha, association of devotees. Second is Nama Kirtan, Sadhu Sangha Nama Kirtan, that is chanting of holy names, Japa and Kirtan. Third is Bhagavat Shravan, hearing Srimad Bhagavatam. And fourth is Mathura Vas. Mathura Vas here means visiting the holy places, staying in the holy places. And it also means the place where our Guru has given a service, where we cultivate our Krishna consciousness. That is a holy place where we should reside. Our home should become holy place, and one should also go to the holy places, both. I heard all of you are going Mayapur. Yeah. Very nice.
Yes, Prabhu. Yes, Prabhu. If Krishna's mercy continues, we are planning to go on that 9th of January, Prabhu.
Okay, very nice. Good. Very good.
Almost 250 people are going, Prabhu. Like there's a big group.
250?
250, yeah, Prabhu. 250.
Wow. Wow. These are all devotees from Hyderabad.
Yes, Prabhu. In Gachibowli area, saw Leland Prabhu's congregation, and there is one more Prabhu, Balgoin Prabhu. So both together planning.
Wow, wow, very nice. Wish you all a very Krishna conscious experience in this yatra. You may all perceive Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's mercy in this yatra. Very nice, wonderful. So we should go. That's one of the limbs of bhakti. We should do it often, especially because of the COVID from the dhams. And Mathura Vas Shri Murtira Shraddhaya Sevan. That is worshipping the deities, Shri Murtis, with Shraddha. This is the 5th limb. So you may note here, Bhagavat Shravan means hearing Srimad Bhagavatam. And the literatures which Srila Prabhupada has given is all to bring us to the level of Srimad Bhagavatam. So it's told that Srimad Bhagavatam is a Paramahamsa Samhita. It's Amala Puran. It's a very pure literature which is bringing people from any background very gradually, very organically. It will awaken Krishna Prema in the heart if one applies Srimad Bhagavatam under the shelter of Guru. Now the scriptures like Bhagavad Gita, Prabhupada told, Krishna Katha spoken by Krishna is Bhagavad Gita, and Krishna Katha spoken by devotees is Bhagavatam. Both are about Krishna only. So Krishna himself speaks in Gita. Many things he speaks, basically to as an affection for his dear devotee Arjuna. So when we are reading Shastras, the point I was trying to say was that we have to go in a sequential manner. There is first reading of Shastras, which is called a sequential reading, wherein we understand what is written in the Shastras, what is the context in which what is discussed in the Shastras. In that sense, we know where is what. It's a very important part. Srila Prabhupada told that one should at least read these 4 important books by the time one, in fact, Prabhupada addresses it as a first initiation time, but at least by the time one starts becoming serious practitioner, serving deities in the temple, doing the preaching mission. So one should complete these 4 books, at least a sequential reading, understanding where is what. And then the second reading is much deeper level, wherein one goes and contemplates on shloka, discusses in a very close group of devotees, and derives, churns the meanings, and brings out the applications which are very relevant for oneself. So these are different levels of reading Shastras, and many more are there. Many more are revealed by elevated devotees. But what I here want to say is, a course like this, Bhakti Shastri course, is giving us a sequential reading of Shastras. It's a sequential reading wherein we learn in a flow why Krishna is speaking, what he is speaking, and what he speaks, and what context he speaks. It's very important to understand the context. The text, that is the shloka, and its context, that is the field or the discussion field in which that philosophy is discussed. It's very important. And when doing this, the assessments we do in the courses are also important, because they help us to achieve this goal of sequential reading. We should not see this as an exercise for just intellectual people or something like that. Srila Prabhupada wanted, he writes detailed letters on how it should be taught, what all books should be there, how many hours people should study. Can you imagine? Prabhupada has given such detailed instructions, and one should take to it as much as possible. And when we do the assessments, I wanted to tell a little about the assessments. There is a goal for each assessment. There is a purpose for each assessment. First one is closed book assessment, which we usually, it's like a normal school exam we do, we go sit and take the paper which is given and write whatever from memory. So it is important, because Prabhupada told that the preacher of Krishna consciousness should be like a lawyer who quotes Shastras, shlokas, and he should be able to present for the new audience the Bhagavad Gita, everything, and also able to defend the Shastra philosophy from those who will tell not proper understanding, improper understanding. He should be able to defend. So that's very important. And it also helps personal reflection and personal practice. So closed book is to make us, equip us with that, the memory and recall, and exact point what is expected when someone asks a question. What is exact point which Prabhupada has told for this? Like, in Nectar of Instruction, Prabhupada tells the first duty of a spiritual practitioner is, anyone remembers what is it? First duty in all spiritual life matters is, and if you remember,
control senses.
Very good, very good. Control senses, you are quite close. It's control mind, actually. Controlling one's mind is the first duty of a spiritual practitioner. Usually one may say, yeah, chanting Hare Krishna is the first duty, or going to temple is the first. Yes, it's all first duty, correct. There is nothing wrong in this, but what is expected is, this is the purpose is first mind control, and Prabhupada clearly writes it. And in the assessments like closed book, what is what is expected from the students also is this, that you just go give that one point. That's all. One may write many things, and they're all perfect. In Krishna consciousness, all answers could be connected in one sense. Prabhuji, chanting Hare Krishna is the first duty. Now, why we are telling it's not first duty? No, that's not we are not telling it's not first duty. But point is, see the context like that. The next assessment is open book assessment, wherein a person is able to think, okay, this is the topic. Say now, Atyahar, this is a topic. Now, what does Nectar of Instruction says about it? And how I should think more about this in my understanding. how it should be applied, how I should apply in my life, what are the possible obstacles I see. So ultimately, Shastra should be for transformation in one's life. Is it not? Otherwise, it's just an exercise for intelligence. Ultimately, spiritual knowledge is meant for transformation in character, so that one becomes a devotee of Krishna. So that purpose will be achieved when we are able to contemplate, introspect, and write more. And when we write, then our mind thinks aloud, our buddhi thinks aloud, and then it becomes very, very deep. So that is the purpose of open book, wherein we are able to see the relevance of what we have learned in different fields, personal life, society, many things like this, social application, theological application, like that. And thirdly, there is shloka test. Shloka test is so that we remember at least the important shlokas. At least we remember the important shlokas for the purpose of preaching. Especially people in India respect when someone quotes a shloka from Bhagavad Gita, and it becomes very authoritative. Prabhupada told us that one should quote like the lawyers quote Indian Penal Code, so and so number says this act. Like that, one should quote Bhagavad Gita 2.11 tells about the soul. So this is the shloka. So Prabhupada expected like that. So to better serve the movement of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, we should try to follow their instructions. In that spirit, we should take this course. We should take the assessments. And in the shloka test, we are not going to ask you the numbers, or we are not going to tell the numbers to make all of you tell the shlokas. We will give the first or second words, first 1-2 words of the shloka. You have to complete the shloka. And a paraphrased meaning is sufficient. You need not say the verbatim meaning. That's also fine. But see this, that this helps you in your personal practice and in your service for Srila Prabhupada. Of these assessments, I happened to check some of the papers which got evaluated for all in your batch, and I thought to say this once again so that it reminds us periodically. So now we will go to 6th chapter. Any comments so far what I spoke? Any questions?
Prabhuji, you said you checked some of the papers. Are they up to the mark, Prabhuji?
They were already evaluated. I just checked over them. Just saw the papers because the results had come. You will be getting in few days. Soon, few days. I would say the candidate who has to write exam again is more fortunate. But do not worry. Many have done good.
Repeated readings. That's why we have to anchor for failing.
Okay.
Prabhu, your audio is muffled, Prabhu. You can't hear properly.
Sorry, sir.
So now we will go to the 6th chapter. Bhagavad Gita is a yoga shastra. Yoga shastre, Sri Krishna Arjuna Samvade, so and so Nama Adhyaya, like that they say at the end of every chapter. Is Yoga Shastra because it connects the jivas back in their eternal relationship with Lord. It describes many yogas, primarily karma, bhakti, and jnana in the sequence in which they appear details. At the same time, Bhagavad Gita is not going to give details of every yoga. Just like a student goes after his matriculation or 12th standard, he wants some career counseling. Which stream of education I should choose? So he wants to know. He has some abilities, and he wants to know what will fit me, my abilities, my aspirations, how easy it will be, how difficult it will be. So all that he wants to gauge, is it not? Similarly, Lord Krishna is answering the questions of Arjuna. Arjuna basically asked, what path should I follow? He already knew the details of different yogas, because he was such a cultured, such a dharma practitioner. If you're not mentioning the bhakti qualifications here, but at least seeing in general Vedic life, people knew the details of every yoga. But what is the question is, which is the path to choose at this moment? That is the question which Arjuna asks, and repeatedly it comes. And when he's going to perform the duty, what motivations he should carry. So in that sense, Bhagavad Gita will tell this. It analyzes different yogas in this contrast, and it presents what is helpful, what is the possible trap, what is the possible difficulty in this, how to elevate, what are the difficulties one will face, how to deal with those difficulties, all that. So we saw Karma Yoga, we saw Karma Kanda so far, Nishkama Karma Yoga we saw. Little about Jnana Yoga we have seen in 3rd and 5th chapter also. Now we are entering another path or rung of the yoga ladder, which is called Dhyana Yoga, technically called Ashtanga Yoga, but that is what is the next chapter. Now I wanted to just quickly, because last time it was already a little late, I showed this slide about one of the very important, can I get screen sharing rights?
Yes, Prabhu, 1 second.
Last time I was telling about the last shloka of the 5th chapter, very important shloka. Prabhupada labeled that shloka as, and if you remember, what's the name he gave to this shloka?
Peace formula.
Peace formula, very right. Peace formula, yes. So in that peace formula, there were 3 things which were highlighted by Lord Krishna himself, at the end of which he says that I am the goal of all your yajnas. Know me to be the controller, know me to be the enjoyer, know me to be your well-wisher. And that will lead one to peace. Gyatva mam shantim rachati. Know me to be these 3. Then you will attain shanti. That was the clear instruction Lord gave. So there are 3 things we should remember. This is important shloka. Bhoktaram yajna tapasam. That is to make us understand that actually Krishna is the real enjoyer. Bhokta means enjoyer. Sarvaloka Maheshwaram means he is the controller. People in this world want to control. They want to own something and have a control over it. That's the pleasure which Jiva wants to derive. Enjoy and control. These are the 2 things it wants to do in this world. So control. So Lord is telling, actually, I am the controller, not only of you, me, I am the controller of entire Sarvaloka, all the planetary systems, all universes. And not only this, I am also the best well-wishing friend of every Jiva. Every Jiva. So Lord is explaining this. And knowing this will lead us to perfect peace. That's how we ended the 5th chapter. Just thought to remind us of this important shloka. So now we are going to the 6th chapter. The 6th chapter of Bhagavad Gita is called as Dhyana Yoga, which is actually Dhyana is the later stage of a system of yoga called Ashtanga Yoga. So far Lord Krishna has repeatedly told to Arjuna that you should perform duty. Duty is better than renunciation. That repeatedly came, multiple times it came in the last few chapters. We did 3rd, 4th, 5th, even in 2nd, it repeatedly came. Now, there is a stage in the yoga practice, in the gradual elevation in yoga ladder, wherein a person, he takes to what is called as renunciation, and he practices his direct connection with the supreme aspect of absolute truth, supreme absolute truth, and that is called the Dhyana Yoga part. So Ashtanga Yoga, which is having 8 limbs, we will see that today, has two parts. One is called Hatha Yoga, another is called Dhyana Yoga. So when we say Hatha Yoga, the initial 4 parts are called Hatha Yoga. Krishna calls one another interesting name. We will see that. And the later part is called Dhyana Yoga. And that is the major part, that's in fact the essence, which is the goal of Ashtanga Yoga, which is the topic of discussion in the 6th chapter. So we now go to 6th chapter. What all is there in the 6th chapter? Let us see it. So this is the general sections, shlokas. We will keep repeatedly coming at this at every juncture. But the first stage is called, first section is called Yoga Rurukshu and Yoga Rudha. These are 2 names which are used here. Krishna uses those words in the shloka itself. Yoga Rurukshu means one who is practicing the Dhyana Yoga or Ashtanga Yoga. Yoga Rudha means one who is in the stage of perfection, one who has attained the Dhyana Yoga platform. Like sometimes, there's this word called Ratharudha. This, have you heard this line? Ratharudo Gachan Pati Milita
Jagannath Ashtakam.
Nice Jagannath lovers here. Nice, wonderful. Ratharudo Gachan. Ratharuda means one who has seated on the Rath. So one who has reached or attained that stage is called Arudha. So Yoga Arudha or Ratha Arudha, Ratharuda. Similarly, there is Rurukshu. Rurukshu means one who is aspiring. Kshu, that's like Mumukshu. Like there are many words like that. Bubukshu, Mumukshu in Sanskrit. Like Rurukshu, Yoga Rurukshu means one who wants to ascend, one who wants to step, one who wants to attain that place is called Yoga Rurukshu. That will be detailed in the first 9 shlokas. We will see that today. Let's now go to the shlokas in view. So, who would like to read today? Who would like to read?
Can I read, Prabhuji?
Sorry, I'm not able to see. Okay.
Anuradha Priyadevdasi, Prabhuji.
Anuradha Mataji, yes, take. So, yeah, we'll recite the shlokas. Thank you. Shri Bhagavan Uvacha Anashrita Karma Phalam Karyam Karma Karoti Sanyasi Cha Yogi Cha Na Niragnir Na Chakriya. Please read.
Translation: The Supreme Personality of Godhead said, "One who is unattached to the fruits of his work and who works as is obligated is in the renounced order of life, and he is a true mystic, not he who lights no fire and performs no duty."
So the beginning stage, before even talking about yoga, Lord wants to re-emphasize the importance of performing the duties in the spirit of detachment. It is so important that Lord wants to say it again. He is saying here, one who is not attached to the results of his work, anashrita karma phalam. One should not be attached to the karma phala. Which is the stage called? What is this called technically?
Nishkama Karma Yoga.
Nishkama Karma Yoga. Yes. So Nishkama Karma Yogi, and who one should be anashrita karma phalam. One should not desire. One should be practicing Nishkama Karma Yoga, and then he works as he is obligated. Karyam karma karotiya. He works as if whatever is prescribed to him. Not that he chooses anything, whatever he likes and does. No, he has to follow some superior dictation, shastras, guru. That is important. So he follows his prescribed duties. So he is not attached to the results, but he follows the activities which are prescribed to him. Such a person is called, 2 words important here, sannyasi and yogi. Sannyasi and yogi. So these words Lord is using here. Huh? And not a person who doesn't light fire, niragni, not a kriya. So we will see what is this exactly. So till now, wherever Lord used yoga, if you remember earlier, I had told this, it means karma yoga. है ना? हम देखे थे वो. If you remember, like, in the 5th chapter beginning, there was discussion about karma yoga vishishyate, yoga, sankhya yoga, upratak bala. Yoga means their karma yoga, right? And now here, when Lord is using the word yogi, it is meaning, what it means is one who in his mind has given up the desires for sense enjoyment. Means his mind is so controlled. Yogi means one who has controlled his mind. Yogaha chitta vritti nirodha. That's the famous, one of the single line definitions of yoga. It will come today in this class. Yogi, one who has controlled his mind from what? From desiring for sense enjoyment. And sannyasi means one who has given up the actions. One who has given up the results and given up the actions. So that is called sannyas. He is fixed in jnana. So Lord is telling, unless one has this attitude of nishkama karma yoga, one cannot even enter these phases of sannyas or yoga. So Lord is emphasizing this. Sometimes you may have seen in Vedic times, people use fire for many sacred purposes, not just for cooking. Your cooking is also sacred. At the same time, Lord, there is yajnas which one does, many different types of yajnas. So not a person who doesn't light fire means one who does not do his duties. It is told in the Vedic times that every householder should perform yajna. It's like a mandatory dictation. One should perform the duty, offering the worship to the Supreme by yajna. And one should not leave the duty, a kriya. So that is not definition of sannyasi or yogi. One who does this is sannyasi. So if you see the translation, Prabhupada says that one who is unattached to the results and who works as is obligate. So he is a real sannyasi or a yogi. So Prabhupada, the very first purport gives a synopsis. As always, we read this. Mataji, can you read this?
Yes, Prabhuji.
What I
In
highlighted.
this chapter, the Lord explains that the process of eightfold yoga system is a means to control the mind and the senses. However, this is very difficult for people in general to perform, especially in the age of Kali. Although the eightfold yoga system is recommended in this chapter, the Lord emphasizes that the process of karma yoga or acting in Krishna consciousness is better.
Thank you. So Lord is emphasizing the karma yoga. It is better. Now what Lord is doing here, in the 5th chapter end also, he spoke little about Ashtanga yoga. And here also he is telling the same fruit which Nishkama Karma Yogi got at the end after his right practice can be attained by Ashtanga Yogi. But for that also one should, in the beginning stages, do his duties without attachment to the results. So Lord is emphasizing it. And there are some more practices which are suggested, which will come in the future shlokas. So the word sannyasi came here. So Prabhupada says real sannyasa is not to be freed from duties, considering them as troublesome. Real sannyasa is actually desiring the Supreme without any material motives, desiring to serve as Chaitanya Mahaprabhu paid. So Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is the ideal sannyasi. It's the only avatar of Lord where he takes sannyas. Then the Vishnu Sahasranama, that famous line is there, which says about Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Any of you know? Yeah,
Suvarna
Hema.
Varanas Chandana.
Parangas Chandanangadi. Yeah. So that's also one line. Yes, it's telling he's golden in complexion. That. There is another line which says Sannyasa Krit Shama Shanta
Shanta.
Nishta Shanti Parayana. So he took sannyas. So who is the avatar of Lord who took sannyas? Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. You know, so Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is the perfection of renunciation or sannyas. And what does he say about what is his desire? What does he say? He says in Shikshashtaka, very famous shloka, na dhanam, na janam, na sundarim, kavitam va jagadisha kamaye. He's telling what he doesn't want. He does not want enjoyment at any level, be it wealth, be it followers, be it opposite sex partners, be it any kind of fame and prestige at the material platform. What he wants, mama janmani janmanishvare bhavatad bhaktir ahaituki tvai. That is the part what he desires. In one sense, yoga is meaning to say connecting with God. How does he want to connect with God? In the ahaituki bhakti. And he detaches from matter. That is from the sannyasa part. Na dhanam, na janam, na sundar. So Prabhupada quotes that shloka. Very, very apt description of sannyas, which Lord Prabhupada writes. Now, he wants to tell a little more about what is the real sannyasa and yoga discussion. So now here there will be contrast between sannyas and yoga. Like in the earlier chapters, if you remember, there was discussion between karma yoga and karma sannyas. But here yoga is different. The meaning of yoga is different. So Lord defines that. What is sannyasa? Yam sannyasam prahur yogam tam vidhi pandava nahi asanyasta sankalpo yogi bhavati kaschana. Please read.
What is called renunciation, you should know to be the same as yoga or linking oneself with the Supreme. O son of Pandu, for one can never become yogi unless he renounces the desire for sense gratification.
Yes. So I repeat again, sannyasa means to be fixed in gnana, by which one becomes detached, one gives up action, results of the action and the action subsequently. And yoga means to control mind from from desiring any material object, any sense enjoyment. That is yoga. Apparently looking, they are opposites. Opposites means they have different meaning. But Lord says here, yam sannyasam iti prahur yogam tadvidhi pandava. Whatever is called as sannyas is also called as yoga. What is this Lord is telling? Because in the both cases, there should be freedom from sense gratification, the desire from sense gratification. Asanyasta sankalpaha. That's the word which is used. So if we have to see against the sannyasa and yoga, as I just earlier mentioned, sannyasa means to stop functions of senses. That is, actions are stopped, and renounce the results of actions. So that is the stage of sannyas. And yoga means mind should be so controlled that it doesn't desire sense objects, sense enjoyment. Both are needing freedom from the desire for sense gratification. That's why Lord says sannyasa is equal to yoga. Sannyasa is equal to yoga. And Prabhupada in the purport says, a devotee of Krishna, a Krishna conscious person, he is both a sannyasi and a yogi. He has attained this just by following Krishna consciousness. How? He says that because the devotee of Krishna, he engages his senses in only serving Krishna. That means he has stopped the function of senses for material purpose. He doesn't desire results for himself. So sannyasa is achieved. And secondly, because of serving Krishna, he Hare Krishna, someone's mic is not. Hare Krishna.
I muted. Prabhuji, I muted.
Okay, fine. So, because the Krishna conscious practitioner, he, as the course of practice, he is engaging the senses, and also soon he will engage mind. He starts with the senses, we saw it earlier, and he will engage the mind in the service of Krishna. So mind doesn't desire anything material. We know this famous shloka of Ambarish Maharaj. This is the quote Prabhupada says here. I will just show it so that we'll read the translation. We will understand about how so well Prabhupada is explaining this context. So it's a very famous shloka. It starts like this: Savai mana Krishna padara vindayor vachamsi vaikuntha gunan paratne karau harer mandiram arjanadishu shrutim chakara chuta sakta kodaye Mukundalingalaya darshane drisham tatpritya sparshena sangamam dhranam cha tatpada saroja saurabhe Srimat tulasya rasanam sadarpite Padau hare kshetra padanusarpane Shiro rishikesha padadhandane Kamam cha dasye natu kamakaya Yathottama shloka janashrayarati. So it's one of the favorite shlokas of Prabhupada. We quoted it so many times. Can someone read this? Mataji, you are reading? Yeah, please read this translation.
Maharaj Ambarisha always engaged his mind in meditating upon the lotus feet of Krishna. His words in describing the glories of the Lord, his hands in cleansing the Lord's temple, and his ears in hearing the words spoken by Krishna or about Krishna. He engaged his eyes in seeing the deity of Krishna, Krishna's temples, and Krishna's places like Mathura and Vrindavana. He engaged his senses of touch in touching the bodies of the Lord's devotees. He engaged his senses of the smell in smelling the fragrance of tulsi offered to the Lord. And he engaged his tongue in tasting the Lord's prasada. He engaged his legs in walking to the holy places and the temples of the Lord, his head in bowing down before the Lord, and all his desires in serving the Lord 24 hours a day. Indeed, Maharaja Ambarisha never desired anything for his own sense gratification. He engaged all his senses in devotional service in various engagements related to the Lord. This is the way to increase attachment for the Lord and be completely free from all material desires.
You have noted here that there is a last line. That's the way. Oh, sorry. That's the way to become completely free from all material desires. So when we engage the senses and mind in service of Krishna, we will become free from material desires. That's the promise of Bhagavatam, which Maharaj Ambarish experienced, which Prabhupada quotes in this. So in that sense, the devotee of Lord, he is both a sannyasi and he's also a yogi. That's the point which Prabhupada is telling here. So we will go back to the shloka which we were seeing. Okay, so sannyasa and yoga are actually same because both need freedom from desire for sense enjoyment. In that sense, both are same. So Lord is wanting to clarify this before entering this Ashtanga Yoga discussion. Because in Ashtanga Yoga, the prerequisite, the necessity is to control one's mind. There should be purification of heart and control of mind. So that is a very necessary condition for entering into Ashtanga Yoga. That's at one stage of Ashtanga Yoga. But to bring us to that stage, there are initial steps. So we will take to that. So in Ashtanga Yoga, the very word as it says, Ashtanga. So Ashtanga means there are 8 limbs, 8 parts. So it starts with Yama. Yama means what we should not do. Do not. Ahimsa, do not commit violence. Satya, one should speak truth and one should not speak lie. There is strong emphasis on not speaking lie. Astheya, stheya means to steal, astheya means not stealing. Brahmacharya, one should not illegitimately engage in sex. Aparigraha means one should not claim things which one doesn't, which is not in one's care. That is yama. The second one is niyama, means what one should follow, the rules. The first one is shaucha, cleanliness. One should follow cleanliness. Santosha is, it is satisfaction. The pleasure one attains by satisfaction. He is pleased. That is santosha. Tapa means austerities one should take voluntarily. He should take some bodily inconvenience, knowing their higher purpose or fruit. Swadhyaya means one should engage in reading shastras, swadhyaya, by which one understands about oneself. Ishvara pranidhana means one should actually come to the stage of subordinating in front of Ishvara, Supreme Lord. That is do's, that is niyama. The third one is asana, which involves bodily exercises, especially sitting postures, by which, the way we sit, it gives us a proper disposition. Suppose one is sitting very relaxedly, he wants to discuss, then naturally he will also be not very, serious in his thoughts. But when he sits in particular asanas, which is described in this part, then he will gain control over mind from flowing down. He will control his mind. Then pranayama, by which one calms down the mind from all clutter, breathing exercises. We saw this in the earlier part. The fifth one is pratyahar. So every sense has an ahara. Like for tongue, there is ahara, rasa. Whatever we want to eat, we are seeking rasa in it, taste. So similarly, every sense has, like for eyes, there is a rupa, that is the ahara. For nose, the gandha, that is the ahara, the smell. Similarly for sense of touch, similarly for ears. So every sense has an ahara. So one should restrain from such aharas which are leading one outward. That's the stage, pratyahara. Then there is dharana, wherein one fixes his mind on some aspect of Supreme. Then dhyana means it becomes more intensified. In samadhi, one becomes completely absorbed in that meditation. There are details of dharana, dhyana, samadhi. So we are not going to such details because it's an overview which Lord is also giving. And he will mention wherever he mentions, we will go to that. So now from the third stage, third shloka onwards, Lord is going to describe about this Ashtanga Yoga. Okay, that's why I showed this chart so that we have a background to it. Now let's go to the third shloka. Any comments or questions what we saw so far?
Hare Krishna Prabhuji.
Yes.
Pranavat Pranam. In the first one, Niragni and Akriya, both are same, no Prabhuji? They're almost...
Yeah. So what they mean, Mataji, is Niragni means one doesn't do duties. One doesn't light up fire. For light up fire means what? He doesn't do his duty of yajna. He leaves those duties. Means one will become deviant from his following of duties. Second one, when it is told akriya, that means he is lazy. Both actually mean very subtly, on a first look it looks same, but at a subtler level it means no deviation, no laziness, no deviation from shastras, and no laziness in performing one's duties. No, it's just that subtle aspect. So Lord is wanted. Okay, good observation.
Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna.
Yes.
Prabhuji,
Yes.
Dhanvat Prabhuji, one small doubt. Prabhuji, you told freedom from desire of sense gratification And you gave the example of Amrish Maharaj, like how he's engaged all his senses in serving Lord. So because of that, he naturally becomes free from desires of sense gratification. But for a practitioner like us, who are not at that level to engage all our senses naturally in Krishna's service, and artificially we can't able to push again. So what is instruction for us, like what we should do?
Very
Still we
nice,
have not
very good.
yet.
Yeah, true. So as we saw earlier also, the desire, that is the engaging of mind, comes little later. But we should start with engaging senses, knowing that it is important. In this chapter, it becomes so very urgent to engage one's senses and mind. In the very flow of these shlokas itself, it becomes very, very clear, because the control of mind is so very vital in spiritual life. Lord especially tells about this control of mind in the 5th shloka here. Yeah, 5th shloka, very famous. Mind is the friend and enemy. So it is important, and mind is the place where desires are generated, is it not? So one has to control mind by conscious and consistent cultivation. Means one should be very alert. Where is my mind flowing? How am I being with my mind? Means where is my mind engaged? The devotee or a yogi has to be conscious of it. And mind will go. Its nature of the mind is it has associated with the material world from so long. It has so many other interests than serving Krishna. So it will take us 100 places. So one should be consistently bringing back the mind. And in this chapter, that very shloka itself says, whenever and wherever it goes, bring it back, O Arjuna. Krishna says that. He acknowledges it. Yes, it's difficult, but
Prabhuji, most of the time we lose the track that we have to consistently bring it. मतलब वो भी भूल जाते हैं कि mind को वापस लेके आना.
Yeah. And for that, there has to be determination, conviction. Determination and conviction that yes, I need to, this is important, this is true, which we lose by time, so patience. We always hear this famous nectar of instruction shloka, utsaha, nishchaya and dhairya. Same words, actually, same words. Utsaha, nishchaya, dhairya. So those are the words which Lord will tell in this chapter in different words, actually. So it requires determination and patience, and good association is vital to not let our desires go to mundane platform. Yeah, that sense we should take. Thank you.
Thank
Now,
you, Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. We will go to the 3rd shloka, where Lord will tell about the stages of Ashtanga Yoga. Arurukshor muner yogam karma karanam uchyate yoga rudhasya tasyaiva shama karanam uchyate. Please read.
For the one who is neophyte in the eightfold yoga system, work is said to be the means, and for the one who is already elevated in yoga, cessation of all material activities is said to be the means.
So Lord Prabhupada has used the word called neophyte. Neophyte means a beginner. We used to make a joke, fight, neophyte, means one who fights a lot is a neophyte. So basically, one who is in the beginning stage of practice of any yoga is called neophyte. So the Sanskrit word used is aruruksho. See this word? Aruruksho. So for a person who is in the beginning stage, karana, the cause for his development, the means for his development is karma. Means in the beginning stage of practice of yoga, one should perform one's duties that will help him to progress. See, in Ashtanga Yoga also there is a part of performing duties. Then Yoga Rudhasya. Yoga Rudha we saw, it's an advanced stage, perfection stage. There Shamaha. Shamaha means control of one's mind. And there one stops from all activities. Cessation, the word used here is cessation. Cessation means to stop all the activities. So Lord has used two words here. Yoga Rurukshu and Yoga Rudha. So these are the two stages. Yoga Rurukshu means beginning stage. Yoga Rudha means perfection stage. So the 8 divided into 4, Yama, Niyama, Asana, Pranayam come in the beginning stage. And the next 4 come in the Yoga Rudha stage. Okay, so Lord is giving that clarification. So we can note how important is performing detached, dutiful action to progress in the beginning. So it's all the more important. And Lord has repeatedly told it already. And now he wants to tell, okay, what is Yoga Rudha? So Yoga Rurukshoto we have heard till now so many times. What is Yoga Rudha? What does it mean? What's the definition of it? That Lord will tell here. Yada hi nendriyartheshu na karma swanushajjate sarva sankalpa sannyasi yoga rudhastadochyate. Read.
A person is said to be elevated in yoga when, having renounced all material desires, he neither acts for sense gratification nor engages in fruitive activities.
So you can see here, he has renounced all desires. Okay, he has stopped acting for sense gratification or engaging in sense gratification. Now these 3 are different, not that they mean the same. See, when we engage in an activity which gives us sense enjoyment, that is called karma, or in the sense of engaging in the act of enjoyment. Now we have heard earlier that there is a path wherein if one practices, he will be promised enjoyment, material enjoyment in future. What is it called?
Karma Yoga.
Karma Yoga. Okay, Karma Yoga, it promises freedom from bondage. Karma Yoga.
Kanda.
Karma Kanda. Very good. Very good. I forgot that. Karma Kanda. So Karma Kanda means what acts for sense gratification. Correct now? Oh, Vedic activities be follow kar raha hai, but his purpose is to get sense gratification. Now I will ascend to heaven. I will get some good, wealth in the future. I'll get good children in the future. So these are his desires. So materially also one can see he works hard. In the process of working, he may not have enjoyment, but he is promised some enjoyment in future. So that is acting for sense gratification. One is engaging in sense gratification, acting for future sense gratification, and third one, very nice, desires. You saw that word in the shloka itself, it was there. Translation had it. See here, all desires means desire. So all 3 levels he has renounced. He is called elevated in yoga. Yoga Rudha. So who is called a Yoga Rudha? Someone would like to revise for all of us. Who is called a Yoga Rudha?
One who is advanced in the yoga ladder,
Okay.
and can control his mind and cessation of activities.
Okay. So in the terms of what we just now heard,
Practitioner of yoga.
Sorry?
Practitioner of yoga.
Practitioner nahi hai ye. He is in fact he is perfected. Yoga Rudha, he is perfected. He is in the later 4 stages of Ashtanga.
One who is in samadhi.
One who is in samadhi, but at least he is in this stage from pratyahar up till dharana.
Ashtanga Yogi, Prabhuji.
Yogi.
Ashtanga
Yes.
Yogi.
Yeah.
Ashtanga Yoga,
Last
correct.
4 stages of Ashtanga Yoga.
Yeah, last 4 stages. In this shloka, it was little more detailed. One has renounced fruitive activities. One has renounced karma kanda, that is acts for future gratification, and he has renounced the desires. All 3 stages he has renounced. That is called Yoga Rudha. In another words, what Prabhupada translates it as like this. Sarva Sankalpa Sannyasi. That's the word which is used. Now, very great consideration here. Conditioned soul, one of the greatest obstacles he has for this Yoga Rudha is mind. Because mind, the very nature of mind is it accepts, it gets attracted to something, or it will get rejected. It doesn't like something. Sankalpa Vikalpa. He chooses to do something, he doesn't want something. Nahi, mujhe nahi chahiye ye. He will say it like that. Oh, getting up early in the morning, no. Reading Bhagavad Gita, no. This is too boring. Mind will tell, is it not? Or, okay, let's watch some nice cricket match or some newspapers or some, many things. Mind gets attracted, is it not? That is mind's nature. Attraction or accepting, rejecting. That's the part. And it has many desires. It keeps popping up us with desires. So mind is the important aspect to deal with for an Ashtanga yogi. And that Lord will describe very naturally. It will come in the next shloka. Very famous shloka of dealing with mind. You may have heard this shloka many times. Uddhared atmanatmanam natmanam avasadaged atmaiva hyatmano bandhur atmaiva ripuratmana. Any other devotee would like to read from here?
Can I read, Prabhuji?
Yeah. Anandaram Charanya Mataji. Okay. Please read.
Translation. One must deliver himself with the help of his mind and not degrade himself. The mind is the friend of the conditioned soul and his enemy as well.
Thank you. So, here we have seen that the word shloka uses is Atmanam, so many times it comes. One should elevate with one should elevate the self with the self, Atma with the Atma, not degrade the Atma with the Atma. Atma is the Atma's friend, Atma is the Atma's enemy. That's the literal meaning of it. Some people give little better understanding. They say one should elevate by one's higher self. One should not degrade by one's lower self. They say higher self or lower self. It has two names. And higher self is our friend, lower self is our enemy. Like that they say. And our acharyas have given very clearly, without keeping such play of words, it is the mind which needs to be properly engaged. So mind, one should take benefit of mind to, deliver oneself. Uddhara, Uddhara means to get out of the world actually. Uddhar and Uddhar. So one should deliver oneself with the help of mind, not degrade oneself with that. So mind can deliver one or degrade one. When it delivers, it is called bandhu or friend. When it degrades, it is called enemy or ripu. That's the word which is used. So Prabhupada says the word Atma can have many meanings. So let's read this. Prabhu, can you read this? Highlighted.
Yes, Prabhu. The word Atma denotes body, mind, and soul, depending upon different circumstances. In the yoga system, the mind and the conditioned soul are especially important. Since the mind is the central point of yoga practice, Atma refers here to the mind. The purpose of the yoga system is to control the mind and to draw it away from attachment to sense objects.
So mind is so very vital in the yoga practice. Just someone told me in the beginning, the first duty of a yogi is to control one's mind. Nectar of Instruction says. So it cannot be said enough. It cannot be emphasized enough how much mind control is important. But the mind control discussed in the circles of devotional service is different than what is discussed otherwise. So we should know the difference and endeavor in that direction. So Atma can mean body, it can mean mind, it can mean soul. But what is the context here? The yoga system. That is the context. And in yoga, mind is often taught. So in seeing the context, the meaning is derived for every word. The famous one point I get remembered. There is a word called Saindhava in Sanskrit. Saindhava can mean black, not black, some salt, Senda namak, salt. Or it can mean horse. There could be many meanings. These two meanings let us consider. Now, if someone tells, bring Saindhav, if he's in front of the plate of prasadam, one will bring namak, and he will not bring horse, surely. But people who wrongly are motivated, they will say, just see, this person is eating the horse meat. They will say like this. And this is what people did. Some people who were ill motivated did, so-called Indologists, who interpreted, who not knowing that, getting the right meanings, understanding the context. So understanding context is so important. And the meanings are taken according to the context. So here, Atma, it can mean either the mind, body or soul, but here it means mind and the conditions. Prabhupada is clarifying that. So purpose of yoga is to control the mind from attachment to the sense objects. So that is clear, this thing. So Prabhupada says that mind is situated, you see the mind, there is gross body and there is soul. Okay. So mind is situated in this. So mind is actually connecting the body, the soul, to identify with the body. But actually there is something above mind called false ego. And mind, when it becomes associated, when it works under false ego, it will help the soul to become caught up with the body. Prabhupada explains that part here in the next part. And that's why mind should not be given more and more identification with false ego. It should be made to follow a superior, not false ego, some superior, either Shastra or someone who is in knowledge, like Guru. So Prabhupada says the mind should not be allowed to get attracted. I told earlier, mind has two important functions. It does two activities. It gets attracted to something or it rejects something. So it should not be allowed to get attracted to the temporary, the promises for enjoyment in this temporary world. It should in fact be made to get attracted to spiritual practices. That is the endeavor of a yogi. He should very consciously, as Lovish Prabhu had asked this question, he should be very conscious. In the Bhagavatam, there is discussion about mind which comes many places. One place I remember is Rishabhadev is speaking about dealing with the mind, 5th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam. He says that mind is so very, if a little inattention can cause such a great havoc. And their mind is compared to a wild animal, something like a tiger, which is captured in a cage. So one is starving the wild animal to get it tamed, but little inattention, maybe he did not lock the door. He did not observe whether it was properly locked or not. A little inattention. Or he thought anyway he's tamed, let me just go in and leave it. He became a little overconfident about it. So such case, the mind, which is the nature of having the nature of this wild animal, it can devour that yogi. Is it not? It can come out of the cage and devour that hunter only. Is it not? So similarly, mind should be, one should be very alert how my mind is getting engaged. So that's the purpose of yoga system. So conscious, and it should be consistent cultivation of mind. It's not that once I did control of mind, so tomorrow I need not know. No, every time it should be very consciously cultivated, repeatedly, consistently cultivated. So because mind has gotten this influence of material nature for so long, it takes quite a long time. So it takes time. One should be consistent in his efforts. Prabhupada quotes a very famous shloka from Upanishad, where it is told that how mind is the cause of bondage and mind is the cause of liberation. So when mind is caught up in this material sense objects, then it causes us bondage, samsara, vishaya sango bandhaya. Bandhan ka karan ban jata hai when it is attached to vishayas. But it can be our result, it could be helping us in mukti if it is detached. When it is detached from sense object, it becomes a cause of liberation. So Prabhupada says mind should be very consciously engaged in Krishna consciousness, always engaged in Krishna consciousness, both. And little more about the nature of mind is explained in the next shloka. Bandhuratmatmanastasya yenatmaivatmanajita anatmanastu shatrutve vartetatmaiva shatruvat. Please read.
Translation. For him who has conquered the mind is the best of friends. But for one who has failed to do so, his mind will remain the greatest enemy.
So it depends on what mind is associating with. Because from the time immemorial, we have allowed the mind to be in the control of modes of nature. It has gained the quality of being our enemy. Enemy means one who works against our interest. He is enemy. And friend means one who wishes goodwill, good interest for us. He helps us in achieving good things, good accomplishments. He is a friend. So mind, when it is conquered or controlled, is our friend. And you will see in the later part of yoga, mind helps a yogi. And when it is not controlled, it will be the greatest enemy. So many examples in the Shastras we see, is it not? Mind has to be controlled. Prabhupada says, very key thing in controlling mind is to carry out the order of superior. Yes. Prabhu, can you read from here?
The practice of yoga for show is simply a waste of time. One who cannot control his mind lives always with the greatest enemy, and thus his life and its mission are spoiled. The constitutional position of the living entity is to carry out the order of the superior. As long as one's mind remains an unconquered enemy, one has to serve the dictations of lust, anger, avarice, illusion, etc. But when the mind is conquered, one voluntarily agrees to abide by the dictation of the personality of Godhead, who is situated within the heart of everyone as Paramatma.
As Paramatma. So the very nature of Jiva is to follow the orders of Paramatma, the Supreme Soul. But mind stops one doing it. That's why it's the enemy. So real yoga means one follows Paramatma and he has controlled the mind. That's why Prabhupada later says, entails meeting with Paramatma and then following his dictation. So what Lord did so far till shloka number 6 from 3 is that he gave the different stages of yoga, Rurukshu, Arudha. Then he told to attain Arudha means what? What is Yoga Arudha? He explained. And then he told, one of the important thing, vital thing in attaining Yoga Arudha is dealing with mind. And he told about the nature of mind, how it should be taken for one's good. It should be made to work in one's best interest by controlling it. So that he told so far. Now, Lord will tell what are the symptoms one will see when one attains the highest stage, that is Yoga Arudha. That is told in the next shlokas, very naturally. He wants to tell what is promised for Ashtanga Yogi. What are the symptoms one will attain? That is told in the next. Jitatmana prashantasya paramatma samahita shitoshna sukha dukkheshu tatha manapamanayo. Read.
For one who has conquered the mind, the super soul is already reached, or he has attained tranquility. To such a man, happiness and distress, heat and cold, honor and dishonor are all the same.
So many times we will find in Bhagavad Gita, that one will not be affected by the opposites, the dualities. What are the dualities here told? Happiness, distress, heat, cold. Now it's very cold. Huh? Honor, dishonor. So there are opposites which a jiva experiences in this world. They are called dualities, dvandva. Huh? So Lord is telling here that one who has conquered the mind, one who has attained yoga rudha, means he has conquered mind, he has controlled mind. And as soon as he conquers mind, he gets the association of super soul. Means he is able to have samahita. Samahita means here it's explained as approached completely. He's able to abide by super soul. He's able to perceive super soul, Paramatma. So they are just switches. You control mind and quickly you have super soul realization. So vital is mind control. It's equivalent to super soul realization in one sense. And Lord is telling next is one is unaffected by dualities. Here one may note heat and cold are at the level of body. Body feels those opposites. Happiness and distress, they are at the level of mind. Mind perceives happiness and distress. And honor and dishonor. Please complete. Honor and dishonor at what level it will be? What are the where are these dualities felt? Body, mind, intelligence, ego. Where is this felt? Honor and dishonor.
Ego.
Ego, correct. Ego, yes. So body, mind, and ego also Lord has covered that. So all these three levels of one's identification, the dualities appear same for a yoga rudha. That's the understanding. And he will tell furthermore in the 8th shloka. Jnana vijnana truptatma kutastho vijitendriyaha yukta ityuchate yogi samaloshrashma kanchana. Let's please read.
A person is said to be established in self-realization and is called a yogi or mystic when he is fully satisfied by virtue of acquired knowledge and realization. Such a person is situated in transcendence and is self-controlled. He sees everything, whether it be pebbles, stones, or gold, as the same.
As the same. No, it's wonderful to hear such a stage of one's consciousness. Jnana vijnana truptatma. He is satisfied by jnana, means knowledge, and vijnana means a realized knowledge. Vishishta jnana, it's a jnana, but it is realized. What does it mean? We will see that. Kutastha. Kutastha means he is not wavered. He is fixed, kutastha, immovable in his determination. Vijitendriya, he is controlled. And such a person is properly engaged, yukta. And sama loshtra. Loshtra means small stone pieces. Ashma means stones. Ashma means actually some steel also one can say. Kanchana means gold. So whether it's stone or iron or gold, he sees all three as same. Means he doesn't see value by material appearance in that sense. So Jnana Vijnana Triptatma, very important to know this. What is this meaning? Jnana and Vijnana. Jnana means to read something and intellectually understand. Okay, Jnana. I understand that I am not this body. I am something different from the body. Whatever happens to my body, I need not be bothered by it. I am something called soul. I read in a book. That is jnana. Just like I have a recipe book. You know, you make a, what is a good Hyderabadi dish? Don't know. Any nice.
Biryani.
Huh?
Biryani.
Okay, biryani. Yes, devotees do it in our. Yes,
Paradise biryani too.
Biryani prasadam. Payasam. Okay, payasam is something I also appreciate it. So we are trying to make a shakkar pongal, one of the very nice dishes which is made in this Margashirsha Mass. So shakkar pongal, how to make? So you take this much of rice, this much of sugar, this much of ghee, and this is the proportion, and you do this process. This is knowledge. Just as having a knowledge of recipe will not help us unless we cook accordingly, offer it to Krishna, get some devotional benefit, and then honor and get sanctified experience, sensory experience by prasadam. Similarly, a bookish knowledge will not help. It is only helpful when we use it for our application. That is the import here. And Prabhupada in the purport, you see, he stresses so much on realization of knowledge. He tells very beginning, book knowledge without realization is useless. One should render service, means apply that knowledge. Service is nothing but application of knowledge. When we apply the knowledge in the service of Krishna for the pleasure of Krishna, that is seva. When we do that, then when we engage that knowledge in our actions, then there will be something called sakshatkara or vijnana. That means the knowledge becomes the very part of our being. We always act in that platform. That is vijnana. And that needs seva. One should apply the knowledge under proper authority. That will only give us realization. So Lord is stressing that vijnana triptatma, yoga rudha has vijnan. He's not just having a knowledge. Jnana. And then later it's mentioned that another one thing I want to mention is loshtra ashma kanchana. He sees all these three things as same. One famous story is there, I get reminded. There is a famous saint in Karnataka called Purandara Das. He was a disciple of Vyasatirtha. Vyasatirtha was guru of the famous king Krishna Deva Raya also. So actually earlier Purandara Das in his earlier part of life, he was a very miser. He had a lot of wealth. He was a great merchant, but he was a miser, kanjus. And because of some amazing mercy of Lord, he became transformed. And he gives many things in charity, and he accepts discipleship from his guru, the great devotee Vyasatirtha, who comes in Madhva Parampara. And Krishna Deva Raya, he knew that this Purandara Das was earlier a very great miser. He was greedy for wealth like anything earlier. In fact, whenever he would go to collect taxes, he would in fact charge him. So like that means he would send his representatives. So he was so very specific about money. He was money like that, money minded. Now he has become a Vaishnava, so he's not really sure. So he says, okay, I will check him. So Krishna Deva Raya, he sent some of his people to the matha of his guru. And Purandara Dasa was there. He had come, he was there. And the people who were sent from this king, Krishna Deva Raya, put some jewels from nice, precious gems in the joli. There is that bag which a mendicant carries. He was living with his wife, but he was living like a mendicant. Purandara Dasa. Dasa Vritti, it is called. So he was some precious things were put in his joli. And then next day, after some time, the king's men went to meet Purandara Das at his place. When they went, they saw that the wife was actually not able to cook much. Then the king's men asked, why? Then she told, actually, yesterday some people, instead of giving charity, they gave some stones. Stones? Yeah, stones. No. Instead of giving some food grains which could be of value, they gave some stones. Oh, really? So then they stood, we have kept those stones there. You can see, they are of no use for us. So then when they went and checked, they were these precious gems. Means that basically, it means that these people, because of their realization of the super soul, Lord Sri Krishna Paramatma, they had attained this understanding of Sama Loshtrashma Kanchana. seeing all of them as same. But for a devotee, it means something more. Devotee means, of course, Purandaradasa is a devotee. In the example or life of Srila Prabhupada, we see much deeper understanding. In the temple construction at Vrindavan, there was a great shortage of cement. And Prabhupada was trying hard, but it was so very shortage of cement because of some regulations by central government. Cement was not easily available. So Prabhupada, by influence through some life members, he could get some cement. One night the cement truck came, and Prabhupada had given the service to one devotee, I think Gurudas Prabhu, to see over the construction. So he was checking the cement properly placed in the godown. Like Prabhupada himself came when the truck came, and then he was seeing how Gurudas Prabhu is maintaining all the records, is keeping the cement properly or not, things like that. And then Prabhupada himself was counting the bags. He stood for a whole period till the time the last bag of cement was taken out from the truck. He checked all the records and ensured that it's maintained well, and he showed it to be secure like that. And then he left. The disciples, other disciples who were there around, they saw it was as if Prabhupada was counting money or gold. Like that, he was counting the cement bags. In the first place, we saw someone who saw gold to be equal to some stone. In the second, this thing we are seeing, someone like Srila Prabhupada who is seeing cement to be like gold. Yeah. In the second one, there is a difference. Can someone point it out?
It is for the temple, for other this thing, not for his gratification.
Correct. For the service, if something is useful in the service of Krishna, that is gold. If something is not useful in service of Krishna, he sees no great value in it. That's the import actually of this incident. So a person who is realized, this is Yoga Rudha. There is one more description of Yoga Rudha in the next shloka. Suhran mitraryudasinam madhyastha dveshya bandhushu sadhushvapi chapapeshu samabuddhir vishishyate. Read.
A person is considered still further advanced when he regards honest well-wishers, affectionate benefactors, the neutral mediators, the envious, friends and enemies, the pious and the sinners, all with an equal mind.
So here, earlier there was equanimity among the things. Now here, equanimity with respect to the people. Sometimes we have friends who is very intimate friend, someone has a formal friend, someone who is neutral, who is indifferent, who is envious, who is planning to do something against me, who is a family friend, who is a saint, sadhu, who is a sinner like papi. So all these different people are seen equally by a Yoga Rudha. Seen equally means what? Seen equally in sense of what he wants to give, not that he wants to receive things from them. When receiving things, he makes the distinguishment. But while giving, he gives equal. Like that day we were seeing Srila Prabhupada's equal vision. People were arguing with him. Swamiji, you should be seeing everyone equally. Why are you criticizing this guru over that guru, this? No. Then Prabhupada told, see, I have to tell what is right, what is wrong, because that is my duty as a teacher. But when it comes to giving knowledge, I am giving to everyone, not discriminating people of India or people of Africa. Everyone I am giving an opportunity to read Bhagavad Gita and become Krishna conscious. That is my equal vision. Samadarshina. It came earlier also in 5th chapter. Very famous shloka. What is that?
Vidya Vinaya Sampanne.
Yeah, very nice. Good. Vidya Vinaya Sampanne Brahmane Gavihastini Shuni Chaiva Shvapakecha Pandita Samadarshinaha. So this theme of equal vision comes multiple times. So Lord, what he did till now is the description of the Yoga Ruruksha and Yoga Rudha in brief. And this is going to elaborate different levels. What are the actions which are to be done on each stage in detail in the next 18 shlokas, 10 to 27. That is the next part. Okay, so what we saw is just the introduction which Lord gives to the Ashtanga Yoga. And now what comes is different stages. Okay, we'll see a few more shlokas of the next 3 months today. I think today I was told till 8 o'clock we should have class, some meetings. Okay, we will try to do maybe 1 or 2 and we will start for today. So the next shloka Lord is telling who is actually a person in advanced stage. He's giving some hints of advanced stage. So here, when the symptoms are presented, sometimes they are alternately presented. Some symptoms are for higher stage, some symptoms are for practice stage, like that. So our acharyas have given that understanding. So we will go by that. So this shloka is telling about a higher stage of Ashtanga Yoga. Yogi yunjita satatam atmanam rahasi stitah ekaki yata chittatma nirashir parigraha. Read.
A transcendentalist should always engage his body, mind, and self in relationship with the Supreme. He should live alone in a secluded place and should always carefully control his mind. He should be free from desires and feelings of possessiveness.
So you see in the shloka it's mentioned rahasi stitaha, means he should be staying in a secluded place. Ekaki means he should be in solitude, alone. So this may sound something different or opposite than what we tell in Krishna consciousness. Come in association, do not be alone, is it not? See, the purpose in Ashtanga Yoga is to stop one from distractions. The mind gives so many reasons of distraction. So here it is told that one should protect the mind, protect oneself from the distractions which will be caused when one associates with different people of society, when one associates, when he's staying in a place where there are all kinds of people and events happening. So one should have such kind of, what do you say, insulation from such opposite association. So Prabhupada explains this in the last purport, what it means for a devotee. Prabhu, read this. We'll end with this.
A Krishna conscious person well knows that everything belongs to Krishna, and thus he is always free from feelings of personal possession. As such, he has no hankering for anything on his own personal account. He knows how to accept things in favor of Krishna consciousness and how to reject things unfavorable to Krishna consciousness. He is always aloof from material things because he is always transcendental, and he is always alone, having nothing to do with persons not in Krishna consciousness. Therefore, a person in Krishna consciousness is the perfect yogi.
So what's the meaning of being in seclusion for a devotee? On this purport section we read. Or being in secluded place, what it means?
Be in this world but out of this world.
Okay, fine. Thank you. Anything more?
Secluded from material things.
Yes, that's right. Aloof from material things, or nothing to do with the persons not in Krishna consciousness. Nothing to do means, doesn't mean in the course of being in this world, in our duties, we exchange things, but we don't associate. See, when we say association or sangha, it involves exchange of one's desires, transfer of one's desires. Say when we took association of a great soul, means what? We got influenced that some part of his aspiration, his aspirations, they touched me, that I also started desiring to be following his words, as he says. Like we associated with, say, our Guru Maharaj or Srila Prabhupada as disciples of Srila Prabhupada say, then they become affected. So there is a transformation of heart or desires when we associate. In that sense, a devotee is not associating with outsiders. He may be dealing with them because we need to interact with the people when we are working in the world, when we are dealing with different people. So that is different than association. So in that sense, a devotee of Krishna, he knows what is to take association of, what are the things to be in touch with, people to be associating with. So, and opposite, whatever is unfavorable, he will not associate with them. That is the essential meaning here. So the further shlokas we will take up next session, I think Friday. Yeah. So we are in this last chapter of this unit. We may take 2 units, 2 more classes, or let's see how many classes it goes, depending on time available. But as much as possible, we'll try to complete the next week. Take next week 1 or 2 classes and complete it. Thank you. So we just started 6th chapter and we completed the first theme of Yoga Ruruksha and Yoga Rudha, and we just are looking at the stages of practice, different details of the practice. See that later. Srimad Bhagavad Gita ki jai. Srila Prabhupada ki jai.
Jai.
Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Prabhuji.
Tomorrow is Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur's disappearance, very holy day. So we can try remember his contribution and pay our gratitude to him. Some small token of service. Hare Krishna.
Thank you,
Srila Bhakti
Prabhuji.
Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur ki jai.
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 Hare Krishna.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Prabhuji.
Yes. Hare